Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers on the broadcast today, part 2 of my interview with Geoff Schumacher. He is the author of Howard Hughes' Power, Paranoia, and Palace Intrigue. We talk a lot about Nevada here on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome to the Winnemucca Big R.
Hi, I'm John Walker. Welcome to Big R Lovelock.
Hi, I'm Rich Martin. Welcome to Fallon Big R.
My name is Braden. Welcome to Big R Fernley.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Welcome to Big R Sparks.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the heat back on today. Call us today and we'll fix it today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why freeze for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your furnace fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
Here on 7 at 7, we're bringing you the local headlines in just 7 minutes.
We've got you covered in the morning, evening, and for all breaking news, in between, and as it happens.
Life is busy, and we don't waste your time. Join us for local news now streaming on our YouTube page.
The new year is bringing so much fun to Tamarack Casino with cash and free play drawings Thursdays and Saturdays and $40,000 in grand finale giveaways Thursday, February 27th. Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
It happens. And when it does, there's UMC Quick Care.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, this is our second show with Geoff Schumacher. He's Vice President of Exhibits and Programs at the Mob Museum and the author of the book Howard Hughes' Power, Paranoia, and Palace Intrigue. I cannot recommend it enough. It revised and expanded. And welcome, Geoff. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to continue the story. If anybody missed the first part, please go to the website or your podcast and pick up the first part as well. Why did Howard Hughes go to the Desert Inn top floor in Las Vegas?
So Hughes decided in the mid-'60s that a couple of things happened. Let me start by saying that he sold his shares in Trans World Airlines, TWA. And when he did that, he received a check for $546 million. It was a windfall for him and he didn't want the IRS to take all that money. In those days, the tax on that kind of income was incredibly high. And so he needed a way to reinvest those funds, and he saw Nevada as the place to do that. He thought that he could be a big fish in a little pond in Nevada. He was very reclusive in Los Angeles. He didn't like the limelight, didn't any longer want to try to contend with that sort of growing in metropolis. And so he saw Las Vegas, which he'd always been very fond of as a visitor, as a place he could go and he could really control things in Las Vegas, in Nevada, if he were there with the money that he now had in hand. So he decides that he is going to move to Las Vegas. He does have a plan to buy a house initially, or at least so it seems. He had his Mayhew and others start looking for potential places to live in Las Vegas beyond the hotel. And a lot of that had to do with his wife, Jean Peters, the former actress, whom he wanted to have come and live with him in Las Vegas, and she was not going to live in a hotel. so he thought he might need to live in a house. But in any case, he begins the process by moving into the Desert Inn, the penthouse floor, the entire penthouse floor, 9th floor of the Desert Inn, and he is there with a handful of aides, 5 or 6 people. Bob Mayhew is in an office in the Frontier Hotel, and he is operating separately from Hughes. They're not meeting on a regular basis. In fact, they never met in person one time. They had many memos back and forth. They talked on the phone constantly, but they never actually met in person, which is a very interesting part of this. And Hughes then, from this perch at the Desert Inn, begins to buy Nevada, if you will. He's buying mining claims. He's buying property. He's buying ultimately casinos, and becomes the biggest investor in Nevada history.
All right, let me stop you there and pick up on some stuff. So he moves into the top floor of the Desert Inn. At a certain point, they want to boot him out because they want to have the room for the high rollers. What they probably didn't know was that all the windows had been blacked out, and this group of aides were known as the Mormons, and they were the only people that were directly communicating with him, except with people on the phone. Hughes was still talking to people on the phone. So he decides, when they decide they want to boot him out, what's his response?
So Hughes is becoming very comfortable at the Desert Inn, and it appears that Gene Peters does not want to move to Las Vegas at all. They've been living apart for some time. And so he decides he's going to stay at the hotel. That's his intention. Mo Dalitz, who runs the Desert Inn at that time, is not pleased with this idea because, again, as you mentioned, the high rollers will be coming to town for New Year's, and they have a lot of obligations. Hughes isn't budging, and there is a threat that Sheriff Ralph Lamb is going to be called to evict him from the Desert Inn. This would have been high drama, needless to say. Hughes decides instead that, why don't I just buy the place? Why don't I just buy the DI, and then I can decide whether I'm going to live here or not? And so negotiations begin. Bob Mayhew brings in a man named Johnny Roselli, and I'm sure we'll come back to him. But Johnny Roselli is a mob guy who knows everybody, including Mo Dalitz, the leader of the Desert Inn, and they sit down and hash out a deal. And Hughes ends up buying the Desert Inn, and thereby never having to leave the penthouse suite.
Well, we should point out that Johnny Roselli was a big-time mobster, as was Mo Dalitz. I mean, at that time, Las Vegas was controlled by the mob, and the thing that was ironic was that Hughes kept buying all these properties in Las Vegas, these gaming properties, and yet the mob was still skimming, so he continued to lose money. He was the only guy that was losing money in Las Vegas because of the skim. One name that came up in your book and also in Michael Drosnin's book that I've been hearing about ever since I came to Nevada is Sidney Korshak. Explain who Sidney Korshak was.
So Sidney Korshak was a Chicago lawyer. Essentially, he grew up in Chicago. He was associated with the Chicago mob, but he is best known as a Hollywood lawyer. So he moved to Hollywood and became a mover and shaker, a deal maker in Hollywood, ostensibly on behalf of the Chicago outfit, the Chicago mob, although I'm sure he had interests that extended beyond the mob. And Sidney Korshak had a lot of involvement with Las Vegas. He was very involved with the Riviera Hotel, where the Chicago mob was under control. And he's a fascinating character that really operated behind the scenes, but had an incredible amount of power, both in Los Angeles and in Las Vegas.
Would you differentiate him, for example, from Oscar Goodman? Oscar Goodman represented many mobsters, but was not a mobster. There were lots of references over the years to Sidney Korshak actually being part of the mob. Would that be accurate?
I would say that there is a difference between those two. Sidney Korshak was no doubt working on behalf of the mob, so you could probably call him a mob associate. I wouldn't say he was in the mob per se, but Oscar, I absolutely believe that Oscar was working as a lawyer to defend people who were accused of crime, right? So it had so happened that many of his clients were associated with organized crime. But, I think Oscar's motives were pure. He believed that everybody was entitled to a defense. And also, Oscar was almost always in court. So he was dealing with criminal matters, sometimes civil matters, but usually criminal matters. Whereas Sidney Korshak was working with contracts and working with negotiations and strong arming unions and things like that. Oscar wasn't generally involved with those kinds of tactics.
Hughes' intent appeared to be that he wanted to own Las Vegas, and then he wanted to own Nevada, and then he wanted to own the country. Those were really his goals because of his association with paying all this money towards the presidents over time, or potential presidents. But here in Nevada, as he was buying up all these casinos, Paul Laxalt was the governor at the time, and Laxalt, for a long time, never had a direct communication with Hughes. He finally did have a connection. What was the result of that phone call?
So I think in hindsight, Paul Laxalt's involvement with Howard Hughes doesn't look that great, and I'll say why. Paul Laxalt really believed that Howard Hughes was going to be an important economic engine for Nevada, and he was. That is absolutely true. But what Laxalt ended up doing was really allowing Howard Hughes to manipulate the Nevada system. So, for example, Hughes did not have to appear before the Gaming Control Board or the Gaming Commission in order to gain a gaming license. Instead, Bob Mayhew was allowed to travel up to Carson City and go to the hearing and sort of be the face of Howard Hughes. So Laxalt, this was one of the only times in Nevada history when a potential gaming licensee did not have to appear before the gaming board. Steve Wynn had to do that. Kirk Kerkorian had to do that. Howard Hughes did not have to do that. And also, Laxalt didn't ask for much in return. We got a few things. Hughes was involved in funding the medical school at the University of Nevada, which is very important. And he also provided seed money for the community college system in Nevada. But he wasn't much of a philanthropist.
Yes, it's kind of ironic. There's a medical center in New York that has done fantastic things, the Hughes Center there, long after Howard Hughes had died. Mike O'Callaghan, sounds like from your book, didn't put up with too much of Howard Hughes's nonsense.
So Mike O'Callaghan became the governor after Paul Laxalt, and this was in the early 70s. There was legitimate concern because Hughes had left Las Vegas. Keep in mind, 1970, Hughes left Las Vegas and left the country, actually. And in 1972, he was living in London, and again in seclusion. And he was, a lot of rumors, a lot of mythology around what was happening with him. And O'Callaghan said, this is our largest gaming licensee in Nevada. I've not met him. I don't even know if he's alive. I don't know if he's a real person. I don't know if he's sane. I need to meet this person in person, or else we might pull his gaming license. So O'Callaghan enlists a young man named Harry Reid, you might have heard of him, to organize a meeting in London where the governor will go to London and meet Hughes in person in order to gain some confidence that Hughes is in charge of his own affairs and that he's alive. So it takes Harry Reid a couple of months to get this meeting on. He finally gets it organized. O'Callaghan and Phil Hanifin, the head of the Gaming Commission at the time, travel to London, and they have an audience of about an hour with Howard Hughes. At the time, Hughes is wearing a bathrobe, but he looks, and he is actually very coherent. And O'Callaghan and him get into a couple of arguments. as would tend to happen with Mike. Having worked for him, I know that, and it went fine. In other words, Hughes passed the test, and O'Callahan came back to Nevada and allowed Hughes to keep his gaming licenses.
All right, let's take another break, and we'll be back more with Geoff Schumacher on the fascinating life of Howard Hughes after this time out. As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
Story County, helping build Nevada's future.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low, and our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way, because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
It happens. And when it does, there's UMC Quick Care.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Geoff Schumacher. He is the Vice President of Exhibits and Programs at the fabulous Mob Museum in Las Vegas. Do go and check that out. It's wonderful. He is also the author of Howard Hughes' Power, Paranoia, and Palace Intrigue, Revised and Expanded. Geoff Schumacher, welcome back to this segment. I want to bring up the rivalry between Howard Hughes and Kurt Kerkorian. Kurt Kerkorian was at the beginning of building the three largest hotels in the world, one after the other. And this was the time of the International Hotel. Hughes was not happy with Kerkorian. Explain the relationship, if you would.
So interestingly, Kerkorian started out as a pilot as well, and had a small air service that flew airplanes into Las Vegas. Famously, he flew Bugsy Siegel back and forth back in the 40s. So Kerkorian had this connection with Hughes, but mostly they were competitors. And Hughes saw that, Hughes wanted to be the big man on campus. He wanted to be the biggest player in Las Vegas, the undisputed champion, if you will. And Kerkorian comes along in 68, and he starts building the International Hotel. And the International is going to be the biggest hotel in Las Vegas, more than 1,000 rooms, which seems small today, but at the time was a lot. And it's going to have, world-class entertainment, and it's going to be a big deal. Hughes is immediately upset about this. First of all, he starts looking for ways to derail Kerkorian's plans. When he's unsuccessful with that, he decides to buy the Landmark Hotel. Now, the Landmark had been a hotel that was under construction for years in the 1960s. It had never opened because they just couldn't quite get it across the finish line. This is the Landmark. For those who don't remember, the Landmark kind of looked like the Space Needle in Seattle. And it was this sort of very strange looking hotel. Well, Hughes bought it, and he's invested about $1 million or a little more in it to finish it so that he could open it at the same time or in advance of Kurt Kerkorian opening the International. And a negotiation ensues between Kerkorian and Bob Mayhew over the opening dates for these two hotels. And there's some battle over who the opening performers are going to be. And in the end, I think Kerkorian got the better of the deal. He ended up opening with Barbra Streisand, and then right on the heels of her coming in, he had Elvis Presley performing at the International, while Hughes had Danny Thomas, no slouch, but definitely from a different era and a different level, opening at the Landmark. So it was an interesting few months in 1969 when each of these places were battling to open first, and they ultimately opened, I think, one day apart, July 3rd and July 4th of 1969.
Amazing. All right, we'll take another break. We'll be right back with Geoff Schumacher after this.
Early in the morning or throughout the night, professional truck drivers are on the job, serving you, safely moving freight that's crucial to our economy. From the oldest industries to our newest innovators, from the exotic to the everyday, trucks are everywhere, moving everything. Never afraid to embrace a future that makes Nevada and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
We wouldn't steer you wrong with the gold standard of steaks at Joel's Chop House. Indulge in dry-aged steaks, seafood, Wagyu tomahawks, located on the second floor, and great views of the Strip.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Geoff Schumacher. He is the Vice President of Exhibits and Programs at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas, also the author of Howard Hughes' Power, Paranoia, and Palace Intrigue, Revised and Expanded. Howard Hughes is an insomniac. He's in a blackened out room, which is ironic considering he was in Vegas at a time when everything was blacked out. And he's up 24 hours a day, obviously as an insomniac, and he wants to watch movies all night. KLAS is the station. He ends up buying the station. And why does he buy the station, and what does he do with it?
So Hughes bought KLAS, that's Channel 8, the CBS affiliate in Las Vegas. And he very simply wanted to control what movies were shown on Channel 8 late at night. And at that time, networks would traditionally, after midnight, they would play movies, old movies. And in the case of Channel 8 here in Las Vegas, they would play 2 or 3 movies back to back to fill that time slot until the morning news. And Hughes did not like what movies they were selecting. He didn't have a choice. This wasn't like streaming where you can choose. You had to just turn the channel and there it is. Well, he was, an old movie guy, made a lot of movies, watched a lot of movies, knew a lot of movie stars. He wanted certain movies to be played. And so he literally bought the station in order to control the movies that were scheduled. And every day, after he bought Channel 8, every day the general manager would need to forward a list of potential movies to be played that night to Hughes's offices to his suite at the DI, and then he would select the movies for the following evening.
Geoff Schumacher, we are out of time on 2 shows. We could do 10 shows and we would still barely be scratching the surface. Geoff's book is Howard Hughes, Power, Paranoia, and Palace Intrigue, Revised and Expanded. It's available on Amazon and where all books are sold. Thank you so much for doing this, and let's have more conversations on this, okay?
Thanks very much. Enjoyed it.
And we'll be right back.
Story County is leading Nevada. Home of the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, Google, Tesla, Panasonic, and other world-leading companies. Story County provides thousands of tech, advanced manufacturing, and logistics careers for Nevadans. We're diversifying and driving Nevada's economy and generating millions in tax revenue and billions in economic activity across northern Nevada. Story County is leading Nevada's future.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
Carson Valley Inn, it's your place for the good times. Carson Valley Inn.
Everyone is talking about opioids, but they're not the only drugs that can be harmful if taken in large quantities or not as prescribed. You also need to be aware of side effects from anxiety drugs, muscle relaxants, sleep aids, and stimulants. Mixing prescription drugs with other drugs or alcohol can be dangerous. If you take an Ambien with a glass of wine, it may be enough to stop you from breathing. Prescribed drugs can be just as dangerous as illegal drugs. Take medications only as directed.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day on various platforms, including television, radio, our website, audio and video podcasts, YouTube. If you want to find the show, you can find it pretty darn easily. And we cover politics, business, health, and education. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next